When I was 7, I picked up a piece of jade. Gray and dusty, lying in the dried-up stream bed behind my house. It looked utterly ordinary, nothing worth a second glance. But I saw it. On some strange impulse, I picked it up, tucked it into my clothes. On the way home, I tripped and fell. My knee was scraped open, blood seeping out and staining the jade. The jade suddenly burned my palm. When I looked down again, the bloodstain was gone. The jade seemed to glow, just the faintest bit. I didn't think much of it. Children forget quickly. At home, I wiped it with a rag, strung it on an old red cord, and hung it around my neck. That jade pendant became my only ornament. Wherever I went, I wore it. My name is Shinwei. It was given to me by my scholar father, who died young. He said the word Wei meant small, inconspicuous, safe. My mother died giving birth to me. My father passed from illness when I was 5. The villagers said I had a hard fate, that I brought death to my kin. No one was willing to take me in. So I lived alone in the collapsing thatched hut my parents left behind. I survived by digging wild vegetables, gathering firewood, sometimes doing odd jobs for the richer households. Until I picked up that jade pendant. Life didn't really change much. I still went hungry. People still called me a jinx. But after I started wearing it, at night, in my sleep, I didn't feel so cold anymore. Like a small brazier pressed against my heart. Keeping me warm. The winter when I was 10, the snow was especially heavy. I went up the mountain to look for food and fell into a hunter's abandoned pit trap. It was deep, I couldn't climb out. The sky grew dark, the snow fell harder. Cold, hungry, terrified, I curled at the bottom of the pit, shivering. I felt I was about to freeze to death. Suddenly, the jade at my chest turned scalding hot. A warm current surged through my body. In my daze, I seemed to hear a voice cold, detached, like ice crystals in a mountain stream. Troublesome. Then I lost consciousness. When I woke, I was back in my shabby hut, lying on my broken bed, covered with my one ragged quilt. The stove was lit, flames flickering. There was hot rice porridge steaming in the pot. I was stunned. Who had saved me? Who carried me home, lit the fire, cooked porridge? The villagers? Impossible. They never even came near my house. Instinctively, I touched the jade at my chest. It was still warm. Life went on muddled like that. But strange things happened more and more. When picking mushrooms, the pretty, colorful ones just as my fingers brushed near, the jade would suddenly sear me, forcing me to draw back. Later I learned those mushrooms were deadly poisonous. While chopping firewood, I slipped on a steep slope, almost fell but my body steadied unnaturally, as if something had caught me. In winter, when the well froze solid, I was too weak to break the ice. The next morning, the surface always had a neat hole, just big enough for my bucket. I began to feel uneasy. This jade was strange. I took it off, laid it on the broken table, and stared at it. Still gray, still plain. Hey, I whispered. Was it you? Are you the one doing all this? You saved me? Cooked porridge? Stopped me eating poison? Drew water for me? The jade remained still, silent. Disheartened. I thought I was just imagining things. But when I reached out to put it back on under my fingertip, the jade shifted. Ever so slightly. Like it was impatiently brushing against me. I nearly threw it away in fright. From that day, I kept watch. I started talking to it. The sun's nice today. No response. That brat Erguzzi stole my wild greens again. So annoying. The jade seemed to cool a little. I'm so hungry. If only I could find a stupid rabbit that ran into a tree. The jade remained indifferent. I felt disappointed. But the next day, on the hillside near my parents' graves, I really did find a fat rabbit, knocked out against a tree root. I grabbed it, ran all the way home, held it up before the Jade, face flushed with excitement. Was it you? Wasn't it? The Jade was warm, like basking in the sun, disinterested. But somehow I knew it was. The thought left me both overjoyed and uneasy. I seemed to have picked up something extraordinary. When I was 15, several people arrived in the village, dressed in splendid robes. They stood in the air on flying swords, garments fluttering like immortals from a painting. Immortals. The villagers went mad, kowtowing in worship. They said they were from Qingyun sect. Far to the east. They had sensed faint spiritual energy here, and came to see if there was talent worth cultivating. They produced a crystal orb, ordering the children to touch it one by one. Those with spiritual roots would be taken away, to cultivate on the immortal mountain, ascend to glory. The children pushed and shoved to get close. I stayed at the back, filthy clothes, tangled hair. No one looked at me. I didn't want to go anyway. Immortals? That sounded distant, troublesome. I only wanted to guard my broken hut and live quietly. I touched the Jade at my chest. It was warm, steady. But when it was my turn, the village headman shoved me forward. Immortal master, let this girl try too, though she's a jinx. One of the immortals frowned at my dirtiness. I hesitated, then placed my hand on the crystal orb. Cold. No reaction at all. Without spiritual roots, the immortal said flatly. Next. Relieved, I stepped back when my chest seared with heat. A thin, almost imperceptible stream of energy flowed from my fingertip into the orb. But the once transparent crystal erupted with dazzling light. Pure, brilliant green light shot into the sky, illuminating half the heavens. Everyone was dumbstruck. The immortals' eyes bulged. Their voices shook. Heaven. Heaven-grade spiritual root? And the rarest wood element, the very top tier? How could such a root appear in this desolate place? What happened next was like a dream. One immortal, near incoherent with excitement, swept me onto his flying sword. I didn't even get to return to my hut. As we rose, I looked back. The village shrank into the distance. The Jade against my heart was blazing hot. I pressed it gently, whispered in my mind, "Don't be afraid. We're leaving here." Slowly, its heat calmed. Qingyun sect was vast, shrouded in clouds, cranes soaring in the sky. I was placed in the outer sect, the lowest rank, a mere servant disciple. The immortal who brought me, senior brother Zhao, treated me almost too well, even ingratiatingly. Junior sister Shen, you are a once-in-a-millennium heaven-root talent. Your future is limitless. For now, bear with the outer sect. Once the spirit stone confirms it, the inner sect elders will fight to take you in. He even pressed several glittering stones into my hand, spirit stones. I nodded blankly. At the outer sect, the steward Zhang, a pudgy middle-aged man, was normally cold and dismissive. But once he heard heaven root, his face split into a chrysanthemum smile. Ah, junior sister Shen. Please, please. No dormitory bunks for you, here's a private courtyard. Chores? Don't worry, don't worry. Rest first. So I was given a clean, neat courtyard of my own. Among the crowded outer sect, this was elder-level treatment. That night, lying on a soft bed, I whispered to the Jade, "Was it you? With the crystal ball?" The Jade lay silent. Senior brother Zhao says I have a heaven root. What is that? Is it powerful? Still silence. Thank you, I murmured. The Jade stirred faintly, pressing against my skin. As if to say, I know. The next day, senior brother Zhao came again. He led me to the main peak's great hall, to test once more with a higher-grade spirit stone. Several elders stood there, aura profound, gazes sharp. Nervous, I placed my hand on the huge shimmering stone. Cold. No response. The elder's anticipation turned to puzzlement. This can't be, Zhao blurted. Yesterday, it clearly try again. Once more, said a white-bearded elder sternly. I tried again. Still nothing. The stone was dead, just a rock. The elders exchanged looks. Jiao Feng, the Whitebeard demanded, "Are you certain yesterday was no mistake? Did you see wrong?" Jiao was drenched in cold sweat. Elder Shanqing. I swear. Yesterday, the light pierced the sky atop grade wood heaven root. I could not have been mistaken. Then why no reaction today? Another elder asked coldly. This disciple does not know. Jiao stammered. I stood there like an exhibit, cold creeping through my limbs. The jade at my chest began to heat. A familiar, tentative thread of energy seeped out, edging carefully toward the great spirit stone. I could feel its caution, its hesitation. But just as it was about to touch the stone humph, a cold snort cracked in my mind like thunder, majestic, merciless, overwhelming. My body went rigid. My mind blank. The jade trembled violently. That probing energy recoiled at once. Its heat collapsed into chilling cold. It was as if the jade had been utterly terrified. At that moment, the middle-aged Taoist seated at the highest position who had until then sat with eyes closed, or a faint and ethereal slowly opened his eyes. His gaze swept over me, utterly calm, like looking at a speck of dust. This girl's spiritual root is a tangled mess, almost non-existent. Jiao Feng, your eyes deceived you. Take her down. Arrange her as a servant disciple. His words were final. Senior brother Zhao's face turned ashen. The elders withdrew their gazes, no longer sparing me a glance. I was led dazed and blank out of the great hall. The jade at my chest was icy cold, like a true piece of dead stone. Falling from the clouds to the mud, just one sentence was enough. Senior brother Zhao grew utterly cold toward me, even faintly resentful. Steward Zhang's smiling face vanished, his lids drooping again. My private courtyard was taken away. I was shoved into the crowded, foul-smelling common dormitory for servant disciples. The chore I was assigned was the filthiest and most exhausting, cleaning the spirit beast garden. The garden was vast, housing all manner of beasts used by the sect for transport, guard duty, even battle. Droppings, fur, half-rotten food. The stench was overwhelming. Every day before dawn, I had to get up, wield an enormous broom and special tools, scrubbing that sticky filth until nightfall. The other servant girls looked at me with sneers and pity. So much for being a heaven-grade spiritual root, turns out she's trash. Yeah, and she got senior brother Zhao scolded. What bad luck. Look at her filthy state. She's only fit to shovel dung. I worked silently, never arguing back. I was used to it. Compared to starving and freezing in the village, cursed as a jinx, here at least I had food, a roof. Only the jade at my heart stayed cold, frozen. No matter how I spoke to it in my thoughts, it never answered. As if it had sunk into true slumber. I knew it was because of that voice in the great hall. That terrifying voice, it had frightened it. The days passed. I worked in the spirit beast garden for 3 years. By 18, I'd grown taller, but still thin, my skin roughened by sun and wind. Every day, the same dung shoveling, sweeping, scrubbing. My only friend was an exceptionally old azure-scaled horse. Too old, its teeth failing, unable to run. No sect disciple wanted it. So it was abandoned in the garden to wither. When cleaning its stall, I would sneak at the softer fruit I saved from my own rations. Its clouded eyes would look at me gently, its coarse tongue licking my hand. I called it Old Qing. At night, lying on the hard dorm bunk, I would touch the cold jade and speak softly to it and to Old Qing. The sun was really hot today. Old Qing's appetite seemed a little better. Steward cut the rations again, so stingy. That firebird in the next pen sprayed flames at people again. Good thing I ran fast. The jade stayed unresponsive. But I had grown used to talking to myself. At least it made me feel less lonely. The change came during a cleaning duty. That day, I was sent to tidy a remote, abandoned beast training ground on the back mountain. They said it was once used to tame fierce spirit beasts, but had long been left to ruin. The place was vast, overgrown with weeds. In the corners, rusted cages and broken tools were piled high. I bent to work, eager to finish quickly. Suddenly the floor beneath me gave way. Rottenwood collapsed, and I screamed as I fell. Beneath was a deep cavern, pitch dark. I crashed onto damp, cold soil, bones aching like they'd splintered. Struggling to rise, I saw only blackness, with a faint glow from the hole above. The air stank of mold. And blood? Feeling around, I touched something hard and cold metallic. In the dim light, I saw it, a palm-sized, dark iron box, half buried in earth. Carved with complex patterns, it exuded an ancient aura. The stench of blood came from it. My heart pounded. Instinct screamed this was no good thing. I wanted to back away, but just then, the jade at my chest, silent for 3 years, erupted with scorching heat. So hot I nearly cried out. At once, a powerful impact struck my mind, not a voice, but an utterly clear, urgent command: take it. Quickly. Pick it up. Stunned, I froze. 3 years, and it finally reacted to force me to pick up this ominous box? This can't be good. I whispered, resisting. The jade burned hotter. The command intensified, brooking no refusal: take it. Now. At once. As if I didn't, it would burn a hole through my chest. Unable to endure, terrified it might truly harm itself, I gritted my teeth, steeled myself, and seized the box. The moment my fingers touched the iron boom, a surge of icy, violent, hate-filled aura slithered like a venomous snake into my body. Ah! I screamed, blood freezing in my veins. Countless fragmented visions, screams, hatred crashed into my mind: kill. 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 Die. Let them all die. Pain. Despair. Hatred. My sight blackened. Skull splitting with agony, my very soul tearing apart. Just as I was about to be consumed by this nightmare buzz, the jade at my heart exploded with radiant light. A vast, pure, sun-like warmth surged forth, scouring away the invading malice in an instant. The force was overwhelming, slamming into the iron box in my hands. The box trembled violently, shrieking. Its black engravings twisted like living things, belching dark mist and defiance. But that warm power was too fierce, like a furnace's blaze, burning and suppressing the darkness. Humph. A faint, disdainful snort echoed in my mind from the jade. Then the warmth abruptly contracted. The black mist on the box was devoured in a breath, vanishing without trace. The humming ceased. The engravings dulled, lifeless. Even the stench of blood was gone. The box now looked ordinary, even shabby. The deadly malice that nearly killed me was gone as if it never existed. I collapsed. Drenched in cold sweat, gasping like one hauled from water. The jade cooled slowly, turning gentle and smooth again. A faint, weary thought whispered, keep it. Still shaken, I stared at the harmless box in my hands. The terror just now, the jade's eruption, it had all been real. What? What are you? I whispered, voice trembling. The jade gave no reply. As if that outburst had drained it, it slumbered again. I hid the now ordinary box in my clothes, climbed from the pit, and acted as though nothing had happened. Back in my quarters, deep into the night, I dared to take it out. It had no lock, but its seams were tight. I tried praying, no use. Can't you open it? I murmured to the jade. No response. Turning it over, I spotted faint, nearly worn-out characters on the base. By moonlight. I squinted to read them: sealing. Demon. Coffer? Sealed demon coffer? My heart lurched. The name itself was terrifying. Did it seal a demon? That hateful aura earlier, was it remnants of the sealed being? And the jade had devoured it? Then now was the inside empty? A chill ran down my spine. I hid it quickly. Too ominous. Life returned to its rhythm. The jade lay dormant, sometimes faintly warm. I shoveled dung, fed old Ching, endured the steward's bullying and the other servants' gossip. Until, a month later, the sect suddenly grew festive. Lanterns everywhere, disciples beaming with excitement. I asked around. It was the once-in-a-decade sect-wide initiation ceremony. And more importantly, the legendary cloudless immortal Yun Che was coming out of seclusion. Yun Che immortal. The pillar of Qing Yun sect. A peerless being whose cultivation shook heaven and earth, who had long since withdrawn from mortal concerns, either wandering or in retreat. He was revered across the cultivation world. And now he would personally preside over the ceremony. The entire sect was in an uproar. Even we servants were ordered to scrub the spirit beast garden spotless in case the immortal might pass by. I listened to their excited chatter without much feeling. Immortals were too far from me. What worried me was old Ching. Lately, he was weaker than ever, hardly eating. I saved the softest fruits from my own meals for him, but he only managed a few reluctant bites. His eyes were dull, lifeless. It pained me deeply. One day, I begged a sister from the herb garden for a handful of low-grade spirit grass said to boost vitality. During the noon rest, I slipped into old Ching's stall. "Old Ching, look what I brought you," I whispered, holding the grass to his mouth. He struggled to lift his head, sniffed, then slowly curled his tongue to chew one stalk. I stroked his brittle mane, heart aching. Just then cough. A faint cough came from behind me. Startled, I spun around. A man in pale moon-white robes stood silently at the stall's fence. I had no idea when he'd arrived. His figure was tall, his bearing aloof and cold. His face so handsome it seemed unreal. His black hair fell like a waterfall, bound only by a simple jade pin. His brows were deep, nose straight, lips pressed in a faint line. Most striking were his eyes so pale they were nearly transparent, like thawing snow, or purest crystal ice. At that moment, those chill eyes rested on the spirit grass in my hand. He bore no oppressive aura, yet simply standing there, he seemed to isolate the world around him. Even the stench of the beast garden felt driven away. My mind buzzed. I had never seen him, but in all the sect, who else could have such a presence? Yun Che immortal? I stammered. My legs weakened, about to kneel. I was doomed. Caught red-handed, stealing herb garden grass to feed an old horse and buy him. No need. His voice was cool, clear as jade chimes, without emotion. An unseen force lifted me, preventing me from kneeling. I froze, still clutching the grass in my hand. At a loss, my heart pounded wildly. His gaze swept past the dying old Ching and landed back on my face. Those pale-colored eyes betrayed no emotion. Its lifespan is nearly exhausted. Spiritual herbs are useless. His voice was calm, stating only a fact. My chest ached. I knew he was right. I know. I lowered my head, my voice muffled. It's too old. It can't chew hard food anymore. I just wanted, for its last few days, to be a little easier. The stall fell silent, broken only by old Ching's labored breaths. I could still feel the immortal lord's gaze resting on me. After a few breaths, he suddenly spoke, asking something completely unrelated. "The thing on your neck, where did you get it?" I froze, instinctively clutching at my chest. The jade pendant was hidden beneath my robes. How did he know? I picked it up when I was a child. I answered honestly, not daring to raise my head. He fell silent again. The air itself seemed to freeze. Just as my palms grew damp with nervous sweat, I heard his faint voice, "Since it was found, then keep it well." With that, he turned. The hem of his moon-white robes brushed the filthy ground, yet remained utterly unstained. His figure flickered and vanished, as though he had never been there at all. I stood frozen. unable to recover for a long while. My back was drenched in cold sweat. He asked about the jade pendant? Does he know it? Old Qing weakly nudged my hand, pulling me back to myself. I looked at it, then at the direction where the immortal lord had disappeared, my heart a tangled mess. On the day of the mountain opening ceremony, the scene was unprecedentedly grand. The plaza before the sect gates was packed with people. Countless young men and women from every corner of the land had come, carrying dreams of cultivation, to undergo spirit root testing. On the high platform sat the sect's upper elders. At the very center sat none other than immortal Lord Yunche. Clad in plain white robes, expression distant, as if the commotion below had nothing to do with him. As a menial servant, I could only stand at the very edge of the square, gazing up at the platform. The sunlight was harsh, making it hard to see his expression. I only felt that figure was as far away as clouds at the edge of the sky. I touched the jade pendant at my chest. It was warm almost as if in response. Stop staring. No matter how long you look, he'll never be yours. A sharp, bitter voice rang beside me. It was Li Ping, the servant girl who shared my quarters. She had always envied me for those few days of special treatment when I'd once been mistaken for a heavenly spirit root. That's Yunche, immortal lord. Even inner sect true disciples rarely get to see him. And you, what are you? A dung-shoveling servant. She sneered cruelly. I ignored her. My gaze wandered back toward the high platform on its own. And at that moment the jade pendant at my chest suddenly jolted violently. A faint, but intensely hostile and disgusted intent surged forth. Its target directly toward the high platform. I froze. Rejection? Hatred? Toward whom? On the platform. There was only immortal Lord Yunche. The jade pendant hated him? Why? I thought back to the day he asked about the pendant, and how strangely quiet it had been in his presence. Could they know each other? Or even have a grudge? Before I could figure it out, the square erupted into thunderous cheers. Heavenly spirit root. Another one. A fire attribute one. Look at that brilliance. By the spirit testing stone stood a handsome youth in brocade robes, brimming with pride. Before him, the stone blazed with dazzling scarlet light. The elders on the platform nodded in delight. Excellent. What a rare talent. Such pure and domineering fire root. Even Yunche, immortal lord, who had been sitting with eyes closed, opened them slightly to look at the youth. That youth was Xiao Yan, heir to a prestigious cultivation clan. Unsurprisingly, he was immediately accepted as the personal disciple of a fire-controlling elder. He became the center of attention in an instant. I looked at that radiant youth, feeling nothing in particular. Almost unconsciously, I touched the pendant at my chest. It had gone quiet again. After the ceremony, the beast stables grew busier. The new disciples needed spirit beasts to ride. Some of the old and weak ones had to be disposed of. The steward dumped the task of tending to old Qing entirely on me. It's going to die anyway. You take care of the burial. Save others the trouble. He waved impatiently, clearly thinking it inauspicious. Old Qing's condition grew worse by the day. Mostly it slept, its breath faint. The sorrow in my heart deepened with each passing day. One evening, carrying a bucket of water to wash old Qing, I approached its stall only to hear a brash, arrogant voice inside. This old nag is such an eyesore. Taking up space. Stinks, too. Steward Zhang, get rid of it already. My heart lurched. I hurried in. Inside stood two people, a bowing, fawning Steward Zhang and the newly risen genius disciple, Xiao Yan. He was dressed in brand new inner disciple robes, arrogance radiating from him. His face was twisted with open disgust. He was pointing at old Qing, who lay curled weakly in the corner straw. "Sh, Senior Uncle Xiao." Steward Zhang spotted me as if seeing salvation. "Shen Wei. You're just in time. Senior Uncle Xiao wants this stall for his new flame charger. Quickly, get this old horse out of here. Find somewhere to bury it. Bury it? Xiao Yan sneered, his eyes filled with disdain. This decrepit thing? It reeks of death. Burying it would only defile the earth. I say, drag it to the back mountain's mass grave and let the wild dogs eat it. Hat's simpler. You. Rage shook me. I stood in front of old Qing, glaring at Xiao Yan. It's not dead yet. Not dead? Xiao Yan laughed as though he'd heard the world's funniest joke. He gave me a scornful once-over. A mere servant dares talk back to an intersect senior uncle? Tired of living? His aura flared, scorching and oppressive. A wave of heat crashed over me. My chest seized up, as though I was being roasted alive. Breathing grew difficult. Senior Uncle Xiao, calm yourself. Please calm yourself. Steward Zhang paled, shoving me hard. Shen Wei. Do you want to die? Apologize at once. Remove this eyesore. I stumbled, slamming against the wooden rail. The jade pendant on my chest flared searing hot. A surge of furious intent poured into me, not mine, but the pendant's. It was enraged. At that moment, Xiao Yan's patience snapped. With a cold snort, he flicked his hand. A spark of crimson flame ignited at his fingertip, radiating danger. He meant to burn old Qing alive. No. My eyes tore wide, and without thinking I lunged to shield old Qing. But how could my speed compare to a cultivator's spell? The fire was about to strike and then time froze. The flame hung suspended midair, unmoving. Xiao Yan's arrogant smirk, Steward Zhang's sycophantic grin both locked in place. Even the dust motes in the air stood still. A wave of incomprehensible glacial aura descended like it came from the heavens themselves. I froze mid-lunge, stiffly turning my head. At the stall door, at some point, a figure had appeared. Moonwhite robes. Black hair bound with a jade pin. Immortal Lord Yunche. He stood silently, expression detached. His pale eyes swept over the frozen flame, over Xiao Yan, over Steward Zhang, then finally, settled on my face. For the briefest instant, his gaze lingered at my chest. Then, he stepped inside. As his foot touched the ground, time flowed once more. Puff. The flame vanished soundlessly, without even a wisp of smoke. I'm Immortal Lord. Xiao Yan's face drained white as paper. With a thud, he dropped to his knees, trembling like a leaf. Steward Zhang collapsed to the ground outright, too terrified to speak. Immortal Lord Yunche didn't spare them a glance. He walked straight to old Qing. The old beast seemed to sense something. With immense effort, it cracked open its clouded eyes. In front of me, the Immortal Lord stretched out his finger. At his fingertip, a trace of pure, almost imperceptible white radiance condensed. He lightly tapped it onto old Qing's brow. Old Qing's body relaxed at a speed visible to the naked eye. The pain faded from his face, and in his clouded eyes, a gentle peace flickered. He looked at me one last time, then slowly, serenely, closed his eyes. His breath ceased completely. I stood frozen, tears welling up without warning. The Immortal Lord withdrew his hand, the white glow dissipating. He turned, his gaze finally falling upon Xiao Yan, who was trembling on the ground like a pile of quivering flesh. That gaze was faint, yet it chilled Xiao Yan to the bone. He shook even more violently. Rule 3 of the sect, what is it? The Immortal Lord's voice was cold, impossible to read. Xiao Yan's teeth clattered. 4. Forbidden. Forbidden to harm one's fellow disciples. And the 6th? Protect. Protect the sect. Even every blade of grass. Since you know the rules, the Immortal Lord's tone did not change. Go to the Hall of Discipline and receive punishment. Yes. Yes. This disciple obeys. This disciple obeys. Like a condemned man granted pardon, Xiao Yan kowtowed repeatedly and fled, scrambling on hands and knees, not daring to look back. Manager Zhang also tried to sneak away. You. The immortal lord's eyes fell on him. Zhang froze, face drained of all color. Neglecting your duties, mistreating your peers. Replace the manager of the servant ranks. With one light phrase, Zhang's fate was sealed. He collapsed to the ground like a pile of mud. The immortal lord no longer looked at him. His eyes returned to me. Tears still clung to my face as I stared at him blankly. He looked at me for a few breaths in silence. Then did something no one expected. He lifted his hand, his long, jade-like fingers naturally reaching toward my neck. I instinctively stepped back, wariness flashing in my eyes. His hand halted in midair. In his pale eyes, there seemed to be the faintest trace so subtle it was almost unnoticeable of helplessness. Then, with a small turn, his finger shifted direction toward my chest. You have something on you. His voice remained cold. My heart gave a violent jolt. The sealed demon casket. Had he discovered it? I reflexively clutched my chest, my heartbeat thundering. The casket was hidden right against my skin. If he had noticed it, would he take it? That ominous object, perhaps it was better in his hands. And yet the jade pendant seemed to value it deeply. My mind spun in chaos. His hand still hovered, pointing toward my chest. His gaze was calm, as though waiting for me to take it out. Immortal Lord. My throat was dry. And just as I struggled buzz, the jade pendant at my chest suddenly flared with scorching heat so hot I nearly jumped. A domineering, overwhelming will surged into my mind like a flood bursting through a dam. Not yours. Mine. Get lost. The voice was crude, possessive, and filled with rejection. I staggered under the assault, almost collapsing. At the same time, an invisible, mighty force erupted from me, spreading outward with a majesty that allowed no trespass. Its target, immortal Lord Yunche. He seemed to sense it. His pale pupils contracted ever so slightly. Slowly, he withdrew his hand. He looked at me, his eyes now complex, probing, scrutinizing, tinged with something else. Was it displeasure? A faint trace of being offended? But in the end, he said nothing. He only gave me a deep look so penetrating it felt as if it pierced through me to the jade pendant on my chest. Then, he turned. His moon-white figure vanished silently through the doorway, just as he had arrived. The chill pressure suffusing the room dissipated. My legs gave out. I slid down against the railing, gasping for breath, sweat soaking my back. That formless clash just now had shaken me more than facing Xiaoyan's flames ever did. Old Qing's body still lay there, peaceful. Zhang lay collapsed in a corner, stupefied with terror. I touched my chest. The pendant's heat was fading, but its fierce possessive will mine, not yours, still echoed in my mind like a beast guarding its prey. I looked down at the sealed demon casket hidden against me. What was this thing? Even the immortal lord had been stirred. And the jade pendant, what exactly was it? Why such hostility toward him? As expected, Zhang lost his position and was replaced by a more amiable-looking middle-aged manager. Xiaoyan, I heard, was severely punished by the Hall of Discipline and locked in solitary confinement. Not even his master dared plead for him. The spirit beast garden seemed to return to calm. But I knew things were no longer the same. Since that day, the pendant had grown more active. No longer just heating or sending faint urges, it now conveyed clear intent. For example, when I was sweeping near the spirit herb garden, it suddenly grew hot, its will tugging insistently toward a humble weed with silver-edged leaves. Want. I hesitated. But that belongs to the herb garden. Want. The pressure intensified. I quickly plucked a few stalks when no one was watching. The pendant quieted in satisfaction. Another time, when I was dumping dirty water from the beast pens at the back mountain, it suddenly pulsed with heat, pointing toward a protruding, charred-looking boulder at the cliff's edge. Move it. I stared at the massive stone, taller than me and embedded in the cliffside. I can't. The pendant fell silent. Then a faint but pure energy flowed into my palm. Tentatively, I pushed. To my shock, the stone shifted. Teeth clenched, I pushed with all my might. Boom! The boulder tumbled down the cliff, revealing a patch of moist soil beneath. In the earth grew several glowing, emerald-green plants overflowing with spiritual energy. Quick! The pendant urged. I hastily dug them up. With a satisfied hum, the energy receded. I collapsed in exhaustion, staring at the luminous herbs in my hand, half laughing, half crying. This pendant was becoming more and more bossy. Why did it want these herbs? That night, I secretly asked it, "Hey, why do you need these grasses? And that black rock?" The pendant ignored me. After a while, a single thought drifted into my mind: eat. Eat? You. Eat grass? I was dumbfounded. Are you alive? I whispered. Silence. Yet somehow, it felt like it was saying, obviously. The fragile piece shattered again this time, the target was me. Or rather, the sealed demon casket hidden on me. That day, just after cleaning the beast pens, I was heading to eat when two people blocked my path. A man and a woman. The man wore an inner sect disciple's robe, his face sharp and sinister, eyes like knives. The woman wore the garb of an outer sect steward. I knew her manager, son of the herb garden, notorious for her harshness. Shenwei? She narrowed her eyes at me, as if inspecting a piece of merchandise. Manager's son, I bowed my head, a bad premonition rising. Someone reported you, she said shrilly, for repeatedly stealing herbs from the garden. Quite bold. My heart sank. I'd been so careful. I forced myself to stay calm. Didn't? The sinister man sneered and flicked his hand. A black light shot at me. Too fast to dodge. It struck my chest, not painful, but instantly, the few stalks of silver-edged and emerald herbs I'd hidden in cloth were yanked out, flying into his palm. Caught red-handed. Still dare deny it. Manager's son barked. Senior brother Zhao's spirit-seeking technique cannot be wrong. You lowly servant, stealing herbs by the rules, your cultivation shall be abolished and you expelled from the sect. Abolished? I had no cultivation to abolish. This was nothing short of a death sentence. They're from the back mountain. I blurted. The back mountain? Zhao sneered. All herbs there belong to the herb garden. Any without permission count as theft. He weighed the herbs greedily. This emerald heartgrass and silver thread orchid are fine quality. Quite valuable. Shenwei, do you admit your crime? Manager's son chimed in, senior brother Zhao is an enforcer disciple of the discipline hall. With evidence in hand, what excuses do you have? Kneel and submit to judgment. Watching them play their little act, I understood this wasn't about theft. They wanted the herbs. Zhao was son's hired muscle. And Zhao's real aim wasn't the herbs. Rage shook me. I didn't steal. I did not. Defiant. Zhao's eyes flashed coldly. Don't blame me, then. He stepped forward, unleashing his aura. The crushing might of a foundation establishment cultivator bore down like a mountain. My chest tightened, as if struck by a boulder. With a thud, I collapsed to my knees, choking on blood. This was a true cultivator's power. Before him, I was no more than an ant. Hand it over. Zhao roared, clawing at my chest with razor-sharp fingers. His target wasn't the herbs. It was the sealed demon casket. He had sensed it. In an instant, I realized Sun was just the cover. Zhao's real goal was to seize the casket. I clutched my chest desperately. No. You can't take it. The pendant had said it was its. Just as his hand was about to reach my chest buzz. A sound erupted, as though from the depths of my soul. The jade pendant flared with blinding brilliance like the sun. The light engulfed me. Zhao's claw struck it and recoiled as if grabbing red-hot iron. Ah! His scream split the air. His entire hand turned black, smoking. Then a terrifying, indescribable pressure burst forth, ancient and vast, like a primeval beast awakening. Centered on me, it exploded outward. Boom! The entire beast garden trembled. The caged beast shrieked in terror. Zhao and manager's son were struck as if by an invisible hammer. Pooh! Pooh! Blood spurted from their mouths as their bodies were flung away like rag dolls. Heavily, they crashed to the ground dozens of feet away. Dust billowed into the air. Senior brother Zhao's scorched hand twisted in an unnatural angle. He stared at me in utter terror, as if he had seen a ghost. Struggling to get Yupiat coughed out another mouthful of blood and fainted. Steward's son fared no better, collapsed straight onto the ground, blood seeping from his mouth and nose, unconscious. The dazzling radiance slowly receded, and with it, that heaven-destroying, earth-crushing pressure faded away. I stood there, completely unharmed. But the jade pendant at my chest burned hot enough to frighten me. The will it transmitted was filled with rage and irritation. Noisy. Get lost. Things had spiraled out of control. The fact that Law Enforcement Hall's Deacon Zhao and Spirit Herb Garden's steward's son had both been grievously injured by a mere menial disciple inside the Spirit Beast Garden spread like wildfire. The news flew across the outer sect, and even stirred the inner sect. As for meth culprit, I was invited to the Law Enforcement Hall. But rather than invited, it was closer to being escorted under guard. The disciples surrounding me looked at me with fear and disbelief, as though I were some wild beast. Inside the grand hall of the Law Enforcement Hall, the atmosphere was heavy. Several elders with deep, unfathomable auras sat in the seats of honor. Senior brother Zhao and steward's son were carried in. Their faces were pale, their injuries dire. Zhao's entire arm, in fact, was ruined beyond repair. Shen Wei. One stern-faced elder bellowed. Do you realize your crime? I knelt on the cold stone floor, head lowered. Disciple does not. Impudent. Another elder slammed the armrest in fury. The evidence is overwhelming. Zhao Feng and Sun Rong both testified that you first stole spiritual herbs, and then injured your fellow sect members with sinister methods. And you still dare deny it. Disciple did not steal. I raised my head, forcing my voice to remain calm. Those herbs, I discovered them by chance at the cliff behind the mountain. As for them, my gaze fell on the unconscious Zhao Feng and steward's son, recalling the terrifying scene from before. My heart quivered. Disciple truly does not know what happened. Senior brother Zhao tried to search my body, and then it became like this. Utter nonsense. The stern elder snapped. You, a mere menial without any cultivation base, injuring Zhao Feng, who is at Foundation establishment. Clearly you used some sinister artifact. Speak. What was it? His gaze, sharp as a blade, pierced toward my chest. The sealed demon coffer again? Or the jade pendant? I clenched my fists. And at that very moment she did not lie. A clear, cold voice like the chime of jade sounded suddenly from the hall's entrance. The temperature of the entire grand hall seemed to drop several degrees. Everyone's face changed, turning toward the doorway in unison. There stood immortal Lord Yunche, appearing without anyone noticing. Draped in a moon-white robe, spotless and immaculate, he walked into the hall with unhurried steps. All the elders, even the stern one, scrambled to rise, bowing low. Greetings. Immortal Lord. Yunche took the main seat at the top without a glance. His gaze swept the hall calmly, finally pausing on me. Only for a moment, then moved away. Zhao Feng, he spoke, his voice not loud, but carried clearly into everyone's ears. He bore the soul-luring seal, using his authority for personal gain, coveting his fellows' belongings. When force failed, he was devoured by backlash. Soul-luring seal? The elders' expressions all shifted drastically. That was a notorious demonic artifact, reviled by the righteous sects, for it could sense and draw out sinister objects. Sun Rong knew, yet concealed. She abetted his crimes. Yun Che's voice was devoid of emotion, as though he were stating something trivial. These two hearts corrupt, rules broken, their fate is deserved. He turned to the stern elder. Elder Zhou. The law enforcement hall must cleanse its gates. Elder Zhou broke into a cold sweat, bowing hastily. Yes. Yes. The immortal Lord's judgment is wise. This disciple was negligent. They shall be punished severely. No one dared breathe. The fate of Zhao Feng and Sun Rong was sealed. Then Yun Che's gaze fell back on me. My heart jumped into my throat. Bearing a strange treasure invites calamity. His eyes, pale and unfathomable, seemed to see through me. Take care of yourself. With that, he rose. His figure flickered once and vanished, as though he had never been there. Only the elders, silent as cicadas in winter, and my still thrumming heart, remained. He helped me again? He said I bore a strange treasure, but did not pry or seize it. He even resolved the crisis for me. I touched the jade pendant at my chest. It lay quiet now. No response. Zhao Feng and Sun Rong were stripped of their cultivation and expelled from the sect, thrown down the mountain worse than beggars. The spirit beast garden gained a new steward, surnamed Wangan, honest man, who treated the menials fairly. No one dared provoke me anymore. Even the gossipers avoided me. I still cleaned beast dung daily. But in my heart, a heavy doubt grew. The sealed demon coffer, the soul-luring seal. What exactly were Zhao Feng and the others after? And Yun Che, immortal lord. How much does he know? Why does he help me? And this jade pendant of mine, what is it? Why does it seem hostile toward him? I could not make sense of it. Days returned to superficial calm. The jade pendant still occasionally ordered me about. One day, it wanted me to fetch a stone from a pond. Another, to gather morning dew. The next, to pour the dew on the scrap of silver-edged grass root it had tossed into a broken clay pot on my window. I felt like a farmhand enslaved by some old landlord. Ancestor, what do you want? I complained to the pendant. It ignored me, only sent 2 words, nurture it. Nurture? Nurture grass? Or stones? Resigned, I obeyed. To my astonishment, the silver-edged grass root in the broken pot sprouted a tender green shoot under the dew. Full of vitality. The change came after an upheaval in the sect's rear mountain forbidden ground. They said an ancient abandoned seal had loosened there, leaking a wisp of terrifying yet pure demonic chi. Though the elders quickly reinforced the seal, the sect remained on edge for days. Demonic chi was the greatest taboo of the cultivation world. After that incident, one night as I slept on the communal bed, the jade pendant suddenly pulsed violently. Scorching. Scorching hot. A wave of fear and fury surged into my mind like a tidal wave. Wake. Wake. Danger. I jolted awake. In the darkness, a cold, viscous aura thick with malice seeped into the room like an invisible tide. This aura was like the resentment clinging to the sealed demon coffer. But larger. Far more terrifying. As if countless wraiths held beside my ears. The other female menials in the room tossed in their sleep, brows furrowed in pain, unable to wake. The pendant seared against my chest. Its intent shrieked in panic, run. Leave here. Go to the rear mountain. To the cave. That cave? The abandoned beast training ground where I had found the coffer. Quick. The pendant urged, command absolute. Gritting my teeth, I slipped out of bed quietly. The sinister aura seemed to sense my movement, surging toward me. The pendant burst into radiant white light, forming a thin barrier around me. Sizzle. The aura struck it, corroding like acid. The barrier quaked violently, flickering in and out. The pendant's intent strained with effort, hold on. Move. I bolted. Just outside the door, screams split the night. Then explosions of spells, and terrified cries demonic chi. Demonic chi invasion. Someone succumbed to demonic chi. Ah. To arms. Full sect, to arms. The entire outer sect descended into chaos. Through the darkness, shadowy figures disciples twisted by demonic chi, eyes scarlet pounced on their peers like beasts. Screams, fighting, weeping hell on earth. I was petrified. The pendant's barrier grew dimmer under the thick demonic miasma. Run. Its will was faint but firm. I dashed toward the rear mountain. Along the way, several corrupted menials lunged at me with roars. The pendant flared, pushing them back. But more shadows swarmed from every direction. The barrier faltered. On the verge of shattering. The pendant's heat dropped sharply. It was running out. Just as despair closed in swish. A moon-white figure streaked through the darkness like a falling star. Yunche, immortal lord. Floating in midair, he radiated pure, vast brilliance. Where the light spread, the thick demonic chi melted like frost in the sun, hissing as it retreated. The corrupted menials lunging at me were struck by the light. Black smoke rose from their bodies as they shrieked and collapsed. The chaos cleared instantly. His gaze swept the devastated outer sect, brows knitting faintly. Then his eyes landed on me. Seeing the fragile, flickering white barrier around me, his pale irises revealed a flicker of profound complexity. Shock. Recognition. And a trace of inevitability? He did not speak. Raising his hand, he cast a stream of pure white radiance toward me. I thought he meant to strike down the pendant's barrier, but that light it gently merged into the crumbling light shield. The barrier that was on the verge of shattering instantly stabilized, its radiance even solidifying a little. The jade pendant seemed to hum, and a thought came through, meddlesome. But it did not reject this power. The immortal lord no longer looked at me. His gaze turned toward the depths of the back mountain where the demonic aura surged most violently. The source lay deep within the forbidden grounds. His cold voice echoed across the chaotic outer sect, all disciples, form up and defend yourselves. Elders, follow me. We shall suppress the demonic source. With that, his figure transformed into a stream of light and shot straight toward the forbidden grounds in the rear mountains. From the direction of the inner sect, several powerful auras also rose into the sky, following close behind. With the immortal lord's intervention and command, the chaos in the outer sect calmed slightly. The surviving elders and stewards began organizing disciples into defensive formations. Taking advantage of the confusion, sheltered by the jade pendant's light shield, I rushed madly toward the abandoned beast-taming grounds behind the mountain. That was where I had first discovered the demon sealing casket. And the jade pendant's target was precisely there. I stumbled into the abandoned beast pens. This place, far from the main battlefield, held relatively thinner demonic aura, yet that bone-chilling malice still pervaded the air. The jade pendant's light shield was already extremely dim. Below. Go inside. The thought urged, tinged with urgency. I found the collapsed entrance of that cave from before, its mouth concealed by weeds. Pushing them aside, I leapt down without hesitation. Thud. Once more, I fell onto the familiar damp and icy mud. The cave was pitch dark, only the faint white glow from the jade pendant on my chest barely illuminating a small patch. Release it. The jade pendant's thought directed me toward my bosom. Re-release what? I froze. The casket. The demon-sealing casket. The thought was agitated. I hurriedly pulled out the black iron box from my robes. And then? Open it. Came the command. It won't open. I panicked. I had tried before. Its seams were tight, flawless. Use your blood. Quickly. The thought was almost a roar, laced with desperation. Above, the battle rages. This place will be discovered any moment. Blood? No time to think. I bit my fingertip, squeezed out a bead of blood, and let it fall onto the casket. The casket absorbed my blood. Its dull engraving suddenly glimmered with an extremely faint crimson light. Click. With a soft sound, the seamless iron box actually sprang open a tiny crack. At once, a purer yet even more violent, chaotic demonic aura erupted from the gap. The cave's temperature plunged. Countless shrill wails seemed to pierce straight into my eardrums. Ah! The terrifying surge made my vision darken, my head splitting with pain. The jade pendant's glow flared wildly, shielding me tightly. The thought was frantic, quick. Reach inside. Take out what's within. Take it out? That terrifying source of demonic aura? I stared in horror at the crack. Hurry. Trust me. For the first time, the thought carried not only urgency, but also a trace of pleading? I clenched my teeth, shut my eyes and thrust my hand into that gap seething with dreadful demonic aura. My fingers touched something cold and hard. I grabbed it and yanked it out. The instant the object left the casket, boom. The entire cavino. The entire earth shook violently. As if something ancient had been utterly awakened. Dirt rained down from above. From the direction of the forbidden grounds outside, a deafening roar resounded filled with pain and fury. It was the cry of a demon 10 times more terrifying than before. At the same time, swish. 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 Several powerful auras instantly locked onto this cave. The source of the demonic aura is here. Something has been released. It was the voices of the sex elders. They had been alarmed. Not good. The jade pendant's thought was panicked. We've been discovered. Quick. Press the object to your chest. Now. I lowered my gaze to what I held. It was a fragment of bone, only the length of a finger, jet black as ink, gleaming with a cold, sinister luster. It was covered in countless twisted, eerie crimson patterns. An indescribable evil, chaotic, ancient aura radiated from this tiny piece of bone. Just holding it made my very soul tremble, as if it would be devoured by that chaotic will. Quick! The jade pendant was nearly frantic. Outside. Powerful auras were closing in fast. I could even hear them cutting through the air. Life or death. With a desperate grit of my teeth, I pressed the terrifying black finger bone hard against my chest, against the place where the jade pendant rested. The moment bone touched my skin and the jade pendant hummed. The pendant erupted in a radiance brighter than billions of suns. But this light was no longer pure white. It carried a primal hue, chaotic, boundless, all-encompassing. An indescribable will, vast, ancient, and supreme, as though transcending all heavens, descended upon me. At the same instant, the crimson patterns on the black bone writhed like living things, emitting ear-piercing shrieks. A flood of violent demonic aura surged madly toward the pendant, as though to corrupt and consume it. Humph. A cold, majestic, ineffably authoritative snort thundered in my mind. It was from the jade pendant, yet no longer a vague thought, but a clear, commanding male voice. A mere shred of remnant will dares to act so brazenly? Be suppressed. With the fall of that single word, the pendant's chaotic radiance instantly enveloped the bone fragment and the demonic aura surging forth. Like an ancient furnace refining stubborn iron. Hisses. The cave rang with harsh sizzling sounds. The finger bone shuddered violently, emitting cries of unwillingness. Its crimson patterns flashed and writhed madly. But under the chaotic radiance's embrace, its struggles grew weaker and weaker. The demonic aura was forcibly drawn out, purified. The black bone visibly changed from jet black to dark gray, then to pale gray. Until at last, when all the crimson patterns vanished, and every trace of demonic aura was cleansed, that bone fragment became a piece of jade-like white, radiant with gentle, pure light. A finger bone transformed. The instant purification completed. Boom. From the forbidden grounds came a monstrous roar, now turned into a wail of despair. And then silence. The earth's violent shaking ceased as well. A cold, overwhelming aura-like heavenly might itself swept into the cave. Immortal Lord Yunche appeared at the entrance. He drifted down gracefully, his moon-white robes shimmering with strange luster in the pendant's chaotic light. His gaze fell first upon me, or rather, upon my chest, upon the pendant blazing with chaotic radiance. At that moment, its brilliance was slowly withdrawing. The purified jade-like finger bone was being enveloped by the light, slowly merging into the pendant. The pendant itself was transforming, becoming smoother, more subdued, its surface etched with natural, profound patterns as though containing the very truths of the Tao. A deeper, vaster aura now emanated from it. Immortal Lord Yunche watched quietly. No surprise crossed his face, as if he had long foreseen this. When the last thread of light withdrew, and the finger bone disappeared completely, the pendant once more lay quietly against my chest. Only now, the aura it exuded was utterly different from before. The cave was silent, save for the pounding of my heart. Yunche's eyes finally lifted from the pendant to my face. His gaze was complicated relief, scrutiny, exploration. In the end, it softened into a barely audible sigh. Looking at me, he spoke at last. His voice was still cool, yet carried a trace of warmth. Now, you should understand. That is no trinket. He is Qin Yuan. Qin Yuan? The pendant's name? I looked down at the jade resting quietly on my chest. It seemed unchanged, yet I knew it was no longer the same. That majestic voice from before. Was it him? Qin Yuan. I murmured. The pendant seemed to stir faintly, as if in response. The demonic source in the forbidden grounds was completely suppressed by Yunche and the elders. That purified finger bone had once been the fragment of a core demonic bone from a powerful primordial heavenly demon. It had been sealed within the demon sealing casket, somehow lost in the abandoned beast grounds, and by chance found by me. Xiaofeng's soul-devouring seal had sensed its aura, and thus his greed had been stirred. When the forbidden seal loosened, its leaked aura resonated with the bone fragment, triggering the demonic incursion. And Qin Yuan. He needed this bone fragment. Not for its demonic aura, but for the primal chaos essence within. That was the key to his restoration. Yunche seemed to understand it all. He gave no lengthy explanation, only told me, Qin Yuan was no mere object, but the remnant of an ancient being, one born alongside heaven and earth itself. Before his fall, he sealed the last wisp of his essence and power within a piece of chaotic jade, entering eternal slumber. By chance, it drifted into the mortal realm. I picked it up, and with my blood, awakened him unexpectedly. But he still required long ages, and unique energies, to fully recover. My strength was slowly recovering. The fragment of the heavenly demon's finger bone sealed within the demon-suppressing casket contained a trace of primordial chaos essence, precisely the nourishment he urgently needed. As for him and immortal Venerable Yunche, the Venerable merely said indifferently, an old acquaintance. Qin Yuan's thought, however, carried some displeasure. We fought. Later, I pieced together fragments of hidden reverence from the elders. Immortal Venerable Yunche, styled Yunche, seems to have been called Yunche even before his title. But Qin Yuan, in ancient legends, was the forbidden existence who once contended with the heavenly Tao itself, causing gods to fall. Qin Yuan the Emperor. As for what enmities lay between them, I dared not ask. Nor could I have understood. I could no longer remain in the spirit beast garden. In fact, the entire outer sect had no place for me anymore. Though immortal Venerable Yunche and the elders had issued a gag order, forbidding mention of that night's events, my name, Shenwei, had already become a taboo in Qingyun sect. A menial servant who could leave a law enforcement hall deacon severely wounded and unconscious. Who could force the Venerable himself to appear? Who could retreat unscathed from demonic chaos? No matter how one looked at it, I was far from normal. The new overseer of the spirit beast garden trembled whenever he saw me. Other menials avoided me like the plague. I knew I had to leave. Qingyun sect was never my home. I packed my pitiful belongings, several tattered changes of clothing, a few pieces of dried rations. Standing at the doorway of the hut where I had lived for 3 years, I felt a little lost. The world was vast. Where could I go? Back to my village? The place that had once called me a cursed star? At my chest, the jade pendanta, now I knew it was Shenyuan, was warm. A thought came, concise and commanding, go. Where? I asked. Follow your instincts. The thought was languid, like a cat basking after a meal. I sighed. Fine. You're the ancestor here. You decide. I looked one last time at the mist-shrouded gates of Qingyun sect. Then I turned away, following the mountain path down. I hadn't gone far when a moon-white figure stood quietly beneath an ancient pine by the path ahead. The mountain wind stirred his robes, he seemed otherworldly, like an immortal descended. Immortal Venerable Yun Che. He looked at me, gaze calm. I stopped, a little nervous. Venerable. He inclined his head slightly. Leaving Qingyun sect, where do you intend to go? I shook my head. I don't know. He was silent for a while, then said, Shenyuan requires primordial chaos essence to recover. Such things are rare, found only in ancient ruins or perilous forbidden grounds. You, with no cultivation, face a dangerous road ahead. I bit my lip. I know. But staying here feels worse. Thank you for the warning, Venerable. He said nothing more. Lifting a hand, he sent a stream of light flying toward me. I instinctively caught it. It was a token neither gold nor jade, cool to the touch. On its face, the character cloud was engraved in flowing script. With this token, you may withdraw silver or seek shelter at the Yun family's trading houses in the mortal world, his cold voice said. Consider it. The bond of an old acquaintance. Old acquaintance? Did he mean Shenyuan? Clutching the token, my feelings were complicated. Thank you, Venerable. Immortal Venerable Yun Che's gaze seemed to linger for a moment at my chest. Then he turned, his figure dissolving into a streak of light, vanishing into the mist. I gripped the token tightly, took a deep breath, and continued down the mountain. At my chest, Shenyuan's thought came lazily, humph. At least the brat still has some conscience. With Yun Che's token, I went to the Yun family's trading house in the nearest great city, Linyuan. There, I smoothly withdrew a substantial sum of silver enough to live comfortably in the mortal realm for a lifetime. But I did not plan to stop. Shenyuan needed primordial chaos essence. He never pressed me, but I knew he had to recover. And I too wanted to see the wider world. I bought a gentle red-brown horse, gathered a simple travel kit, and set out to wander. Shenyuan became my true pendant. He continued to order me about 300 li to the left something. Stop. Dig beneath that valley. See that black mountain? Climb it. The places he pointed me toward were always remote and harsh miasma-choked swamps, rainforests swarming with venomous insects, windswept icy peaks, bottomless underground rivers. Countless times I brushed against death. Snakebites, cliff falls, lost in deserts nearly swallowed by quicksand. Each time, it was Shenyuan's sudden burst of power that saved me. And the things he had me retrieve were bizarre beyond measure: a charred stone buried in volcanic ash. A blue herb growing in 10,000-year-old ice. A droplet of black liquid, reeking of blood, suspended from an ancient tomb ceiling. Each contained a faint wisp of chaos aura. After Shenyuan absorbed them, the pendant grew more solid. Its surface patterns became increasingly intricate and arcane. Even his thoughts became clearer and more human. No longer just curt commands, but tinged with emotion. I heard impatience: hurry up. Stop dawdling. Disgust: this place is filthy. Even fury when I nearly lost an arm to a savage beast. His roar thundered: beast. Courting death. And the monster spontaneously combusted into ashes. I realized this legendary Emperor Shenyuan had quite a bad temper. And he was very lazy. If he could avoid lifting a finger, he would. If he could send me to fetch, he never exerted himself. A pendant in name and in truth. 3 years later. I arrived at a forbidden place called the Sea of Annihilation Sands. Here, yellow sand filled the skies, the heat eternal. It was said even nascent soul cultivators dared not venture deep. Shenyuan's guidance pointed straight into its heart. What is it this time? I asked, wrapped in thick sandcloth. Only my eyes exposed. The endless gold expanse stretched before me, sand even filled my mouth. Something good, his thought came with rare excitement. Better than the last drop of yellow spring stew? Much better. Fine. I resigned myself, urging my red horse, Little Red, into the desert. 7 days and nights I traveled. My food was nearly gone, my water nearly exhausted. Little Red panted heavily, on the verge of collapse. Still, Shenyuan's destination remained out of reach. How much longer? My voice was hoarse with thirst and heat. Soon, he said vaguely. You said that 3 days ago. This time it's really soon. I rolled my eyes. As if I'd believe him. Suddenly Little Red shrieked in terror, hooves trembling, refusing to go forward. What is it? I asked, scanning the storming sands nervously. At my chest, the pendant flared hot. Shenyuan's voice was grave, careful. Something's coming. The words had barely fallen when a sand dune hundreds of zhang away erupted like boiling water. Boom! Sand exploded skyward. A colossal creature burst forth from beneath the desert. A worm. But so massive words failed me. Its body stretched like a mountain range, armored in dark gold chitin thicker than iron. Countless limb segments rose like giant pillars. Its head bore only one tina circular maw, lined with spiraling teeth, wide enough to swallow a house whole. From it emanated a wild, ancient, violent aura stirring the sands, blotting out the sky. Sand Emperor Worm? My soul nearly fled my body. The overlord of the Sea of Annihilation Sands. A terror said to feed on dragons. Little Red collapsed in a faint, foaming at the mouth. The worm sensed ustwell pitiful morsels. Its gigantic maw opened, loosing a roar like thunder. A crushing suction force swept us in the sand beneath my feet collapsed, dragging me and Little Red helplessly toward that abyssal maw. Shenyuan. Help! I screamed. Troublesome, came his exasperated reply. The pendant burst with chaotic radiance. A terrifying force surged forth but just at that instant chaying. A clear sword cry rang out, sharp as a dragon's roar. From the sandstorm a sword light shone white as the blazing sun, pure beyond words. It split the desert sky, descending like heaven's judgment. Precisely. It cleaved into the worm's hideous maw. Shhhhhk. The dark gold carapace parted like paper. Foul green blood gushed like a waterfall. Roar! The Sand Emperor worm shrieked in agony, its massive body thrashing, turning the desert upside down. The sword light faded. And there, hovering calmly before the beast's colossal head, a figure stood solitary, cold, aloof. Moon-white robes fluttered in the storm, unsullied by dust. Immortal Venerable Yun Che. He held a jade-like longsword, its tip angled downward. Expression indifferent, he looked upon the writhing beast. Wretch! How dare you harm mortals? The Sand Emperor worm went berserk. Its titanic form arched, countless limb spears thrusting out like a storm of javelins, howling as they tore through the air toward the lone figure in the sky. Yun Che's eyes grew colder. He flicked his sword lightly. Shhhk. A sword light even sharper, even colder than before poured down like moonlight. Silent. Those countless spears halted then snapped off, all at once, neatly, cleanly mere zhongs from his body. The worm's screeches grew ever more desperate. Finally, it seemed to realize the horror before it. Its massive body twisted, plunging downward, back into the sands. Escape? Humph, Yun Che snorted coldly. The sword in his hand slipped free, flying forth ChatGPT to NOI, a blinding white rainbow shot forth, as if it had its own life. Plunging instantly into the sea of sand. Boom! A muffled roar came from deep underground. The entire desert churned violently. Moments later, the white rainbow burst out of the sand, flying back into the hand of celestial venerable Yunche. The sword's body gleamed spotless as ever. Below, the sea of sand quieted once more. A thick, dark golden blood seeped slowly from beneath the dunes, staining a vast expanse of desert yellow. The ruler of the Annihilation Sand Sea, the Sand Emperor Worm, had fallen. Venerable Yunche descended gracefully, landing before me. The gale whipped his robes and tugged at my headscarf. I looked at him, still shaken. Celestial Venerable. Why are you here? His gaze swept over my disheveled state, then fell upon the fainted Xiaohong behind me. Passing by. His voice was as cold as ever. From my chest. Xin Yuan's will sneered, pretending. Yunche's eyes seemed to pierce through my clothing, resting upon the jade pendant at my chest. He ignored Xin Yuan's mocking words and instead turned to the blood-soaked sands where the Sand Emperor Worm had died. In its nest lies the Earth origin core it devoured and condensed over 10,000 years, containing a trace of primordial earth useful to Xin Yuan. As he spoke, he raised his hand and made a grasping motion toward the sand. A fist-sized crystal nucleus of earthy yellow, radiating a vast, majestic aura of the land itself, burst out of the sand and flew into his hand. He tossed it to me. Take it. I caught it reflexively. The core was heavy and warm in my palm. From Xin Yuan, a ripple of will came, a fine treasure. Without another word, Yunche turned to leave. Celestial Venerable. I called after him. His steps paused. But he didn't turn around. You. Have you been following me all this time? I forced out the question. In these 3 years, I had faced countless brushes with death. Several times, in the most desperate of moments, I felt a faint, chilling presence nearby. I thought it was an illusion. But this time... Yunche was silent for a moment. His cold voice came, blurred by the blowing sand, bound by another's request, fulfilling another's trust. With that, his figure flickered and vanished. Another's request? The one who entrusted him. Was it Xin Yuan? I lowered my gaze to the jade pendant at my chest. Xin Yuan's will answered, awkwardly, meddlesome. I smiled. Clutching the heavy, warm earth origin core in my hand, I whispered. Thank you. I wasn't sure if I was saying it to the vanished venerable, or to the pendant resting against my chest. The desert wind didn't feel so scorching anymore. After absorbing the earth origin core, Xin Yuan once again fell into slumber. This time, the sleep was deeper than ever. The pendant grew mild and unassuming, its glow hidden, like a true piece of common jade. But I knew he was undergoing a crucial transformation. I didn't stop. I continued on, following the last direction Xin Yuan had given me before he slept. Toward the far west of the continent, to a forbidden sea known as the Sea of Ruins. It was said to be the world's very end, where all things returned to silence. Riding Xiaohong, who had recovered her strength, I crossed mountains and rivers. Without Xin Yuan's guidance and protection, the journey grew far harsher. But I was no longer that stable boy who once cleaned beast dung in the spirit beast pens, bullied by all. 3 years of life and death trials, and countless times of having my body tempered by Xin Yuan's power, had changed me. Though I still lacked a spiritual root and could not cultivate orthodox immortal arts, my physique had been subtly transformed. I was far stronger, swifter, sharper of sense. My instincts for danger far surpassed those of ordinary men. Most importantly, I had learned independence. Learned how to survive in despair. 1 year later, I finally reached the continent's westernmost edge. Before me stretched an endless sea of ashen gray. The Sea of Ruins. Its waters were thick as slurry, unmoving. Lifeless. The skies hung with eternal gray mist, pressing down so heavily I could hardly breathe. The shore was barren, strewn only with jagged black reefs. The air reeked of decay and endings. Xiaohong pawed the ground uneasily, refusing to approach the sea. I calmed her, staring at the deathly waters. Xinyuan's last destination lay within the sea's depths. But here, even ships could not float. How was I supposed to go? As I stood lost in thought, the pendant at my chest, silent for over a year, suddenly trembled faintly. A weak but clear thought came: it has arrived. It? What has? Puzzled, I looked toward the sea. From the distant gray waters, something was moving. Gradually, it drew closer. A boat? An ancient wooden boat, its hull weathered and worn by the ages. Its design was primitive, without sail or oar. Yet it glided steadily through the thick, gray sea, approaching the shore at a measured rhythm. At last, it stopped silently by the rocks before me. At the bow stood a figure dressed in a straw raincoat and hat, hunched with age. I could not see his face. Only the eyes beneath the hat brim, ancient, weary, gazing at me. Crossing? A rasping voice croaked. I gripped the pendant at my chest. Xinyuan's thought was calm: board the boat. I looked at the eerie vessel, and its mysterious ferryman. Then drew a deep breath. Crossing. I untied Xiaohong's reins, patting her neck. Xiaohong, you're free now. Go home. She nuzzled my hand, whinnied softly, reluctant. But at last she turned and galloped back the way we came. I turned, and stepped onto the ancient boat. It rocked gently beneath me. The ferryman made no move. The vessel turned silently, gliding toward the sea's lifeless depths. The thick waters parted noiselessly on either side. Gray fog enveloped us. Only the faint glow of a yellow lantern at the bow lit our way. I stood at the stern, watching the shore fade into mist, then vanish. At my chest, the jade pendant was warm. Xinyuan's thought carried a trace of anticipation? We're close. I didn't know how long we drifted in the fog. Here, time seemed meaningless. Finally, the fog ahead grew thin. Through it, something loomed, not land. When the boat emerged from the fog, I was struck speechless. Before me stretched not an ocean, but a chaotic void. Countless shattered stars. Broken rivers, fragments of mountains and realms, floated and turned as if discarded by a giant unseen hand. Ribbons of fragmented light, radiant yet broken, flowed silently through the void. Colossal bones, vast as mountain ranges, lay scattered. Further away, a titanic black hole devoured all, while nebulae raged with storms of destruction. This was the wreckage of the world, the grave of all creation, and the source of chaos itself. The boat halted at the void's edge. The ferryman's rasp sounded, the eye of ruins. We've arrived. He pointed toward the void's deepest reaches. There, a colossal, slowly rotating gray sphere hovered. On its surface flickered countless fractured projections of stars and continents. Chaotic streams of energy wound about it like tentacles. From it emanated a primordial breath, as if from the dawn of creation. The pendant on my chest trembled violently, scorching hot. A vast, overwhelming will surged forth, thrilling like a wanderer returning home. At last. I've returned. Xinyuan's voice, no longer mere thought, resounded directly in my mind. Clear, deep, majestic yet tinged with fatigue and age. The pendant blazed with chaotic light. Within it, a phantom figure slowly coalesced. A man's figure, tall, imposing, clad in a black imperial robe embroidered with sun, moon, and stars, the image of chaos's birth. His dark hair flowed loose. His face was shrouded in chaos. Indistinct. But his eyes. Profound as the endless cosmos. With each blink, worlds perished and stars were born. Majestic. Ancient. Boundless. Even the chaotic void quaked beneath his aura. The ferryman prostrated at the bow in reverence. Xinyuan's phantom stood tall, gazing through the void at the massive gray sphere, the eye of ruins. Shenwei. His deep, commanding voice called my name. I stared at his towering figure, heart surging. Xinyuan. This is my origin ground, the chaos source pool. I must return, to rebuild my true form. The process will be long, and perilous. He turned, his starry eyes piercing me, seeing through to the depths of my soul. Will you wait here for me? Though his voice carried unshakable majesty, I sensed a hint of inquiry. I looked at his fading figure, then at the silent, magnificent graveyard of chaos. Wait. For how long? 10 years? 100? 1,000? Forever? But I didn't hesitate. I nodded. Yes. His phantom seemed to incline his head slightly. Good. Without another word, his form dissolved into a vast torrent of chaos, like a dragon returning to its lair, rushing toward the Eye of Ruins. Boom. The chaos torrent crashed into the gray sphere. The Eye of Ruins trembled violently. Chaotic streams roared madly. Broken stars spun faster. An older, more primal aura spread from within the eye, as though an ancient existence, slumbering since eternity, was awakening. I stood upon the ancient boat, watching this world-shaking sight. At my chest, the pendant was still warm but empty. I knew. My pendant had gone home. I stayed on the boat. The ferryman gave me a gray pearl. With it in my mouth, I needed no food or drink, my body falling into a state like hibernation. Time no longer mattered. I sat at the bow, watching the chaotic void. Day after day, I watched as the Eye of Ruins, after Xin Yuan's return, slowly changed. Its rotation slowed. Its immense form gradually shrank. The broken projections upon its surface faded. The chaotic currents grew denser, their gray hue slowly shifting toward a warm, profound shade of primordial yellow, like the first dawn of chaos. Sometimes, when the tides of void energy surge, I can faintly sense a familiar and vast will pulsing within the eye of the abyss. It is Qin Yuan. He is transforming, reviving. And I, by the silent shore of the abyssal ruins, simply wait. At times, I recall the days of cleaning up beast dung in Qingyun sect. I think of old Qing. I think of that immortal figure, cold and pure as the moon. But most of the time, my mind is empty. I just watch fragments of starlight drift by. I watch the chaotic currents coil like dragons. I don't know how long it has been. A year? 10 years? 100? That colossal Shanhuang sphere finally ceases its rotation. It now floats still at the center of the void, radiating a gentle yet vast chaotic light like an egg that cradles the birth of a universe. And then crack. Crack. Tiny fractures sound in the silence of the void. Hairline cracks spread across the surface of the yellow-black sphere. More and more, denser and denser. Light seeps out from them, growing ever brighter. Boom. The entire sphere shatters with a roar. Endless brilliance floods the chaotic void. At the very core of that light, a figure takes shape, emerging from illusion into reality. A black imperial robe, billowing in the void. Hair black as ink, cascading like a waterfall, flowing though no wind stirs. His face remains veiled by chaotic mist, indistinct. Only his eyes are visible, eyes deep as the eternal stars, eyes bearing the majesty of a sovereign of 9 heavens. Slowly, they open. Where his gaze falls, shattered stars freeze in place. Where his gaze passes, raging chaos falls still. He, the Emperor Qin Yuan, has truly returned. He steps forth upon the currents of chaos. With but a single stride, he stands before the wooden ferry. The boundless might of an emperor sweeps forth, making the ferryman collapse, trembling like a leaf. Qin Yuan's gaze falls upon me. This time, his eyes are not vague illusions, but real, tangible, filled with scrutiny, inquiry, and a faint trace of something indescribably complex. I stand at the prow of the boat, looking up at him. He is so tall, so vast. Like a mortal staring up at the heavens. I open my mouth, but no words come. Should I call him Qin Yuan? Or Emperor? He looks at me quietly for a moment. And then to my astonishment that overwhelming imperial aura suddenly recedes like the tide. The brilliance of his black robe dims. His towering frame begins to shrink, to fade. Until, at last, all the light is gone. And standing there is merely a man. A man clad in a simple black robe. Straight-backed, impossibly handsome, with sword-like brows and starry eyes, a high nose bridge, lips pressed faintly together. Only his gaze remains the same profound as the abyss. Carrying the weight of endless ages, and a lingering trace of imperial majesty. He looks now like nothing more than a noble young lord, unique only in bearing. He steps onto the boat. The hull sways gently beneath his weight. He stops before me so close I can breathe in the aura around him, fresh and ancient, like the scent of a newborn cosmos. He lowers his head, looking down at me. I look up at him, dazed. Is this still the Pendant who used to boss me around like a beast of burden? Suddenly, he raises his hand. Long, slender fingers, knuckles distinct. Before I can react, his fingertip touches my brow. A warm surge of chaotic light flows into my mind. Boom. A flood of information pours into me. Fragments of insight into the origin of chaos. Shards of understanding of heaven and earth's laws. Glimpses of how to wield power. Vast, profound, abstruse yet somehow instinctively clear to me. My body, under this torrent of force, transforms completely. Blocked meridians are forced open. My silent dantian bursts alive, like heaven and earth at creation. An uncanny sense rises within me that I am not apart from this chaotic void, but a part of it. I can see the flow of void energy. I can hear the rhythm of drifting stars. Unconsciously, I raise my hand. A wisp of chaotic energy twines about my fingertip, gentle as a tamed serpent. Qin Yuan withdraws his hand. This is the embryonic form of a chaos origin body. His voice is low and smooth, no longer a thought voice, no longer the imperious tone of an emperor, but real rich, magnetic. Though you lack spiritual roots, you may yet command chaos. His eyes fall upon the stream of chaos curling around my finger. He seems somewhat satisfied. Then he does something that leaves me utterly stunned. He extends his palm. Light flashes. A jade pendant appears in his hand. The very same piece I once picked up yet now refined, its lines harmonious, its runes flowing of their own accord. This jade accompanied my slumber through countless ages. Bathed in my essence, it has become a chaos spirit treasure. As he speaks, his finger flicks lightly. The pendant turns into a streak of light, sinking back into his palm. And then his body itself begins to turn transparent. Fading. Dissolving into the void. Finally transforms into a mysterious seal of chaotic runes. Whoosh! The seal flashes, and brands itself upon my chest. Warmth spreads across my heart. His voice echoes directly in my mind, low, magnetic and oddly familiar in its laziness. I'm leaving. This place is dull. Me. I lower my head, looking at the faint glowing rune upon my chest. That familiar aura once again lingers there. My lips twitch. So. This emperor who just rebuilt his divine body, who shook the heavens with his might has once again turned into a pendant. And this time, he's hanging directly on my chest? The wooden ferry rocks gently. The ferryman, at some point, has risen, pushing the long pole. The boat turns, sailing slowly back into the gray mist toward the path we came. I stand at the bow. The seal on my chest is warm. Behind me, the chaotic void is swallowed by fog. Ahead lies the road home. I sigh helplessly. Hey, I murmur to the rune on my chest. This time. Where do you want to go? The seal warms faintly. Qin Yuan's lazy voice responds, follow the feeling. The end.